He breaks the boundary of the memories of the past, and he accesses hope, which is a memory of the future. So Aver, Hebrew, means crossing, but it means crossing from the past. The word E-V-E-R, Aver, which is a 3-letter Hebrew root, it means Hebrew, it means past, and it means the crossing. So I move from the memories of the past to the memories of the future. What do we need to do? And by we, I don't mean the rest of the world, right? At this moment, I'm talking about what do we here in One Mountain, Many Paths? What do we need to do, right? Who are we? What are we here? We who have, we started with my beloved wholemate, Barbara Marx Hubbard, as we started One Mountain, Many Paths as a seat of the revolution, understanding that there's a crisis, and the crisis is a meta-crisis. And that meta-crisis emerges from about 10 different vectors. One of them is intense polarization. And we said that in response to the meta-crisis, we need to do the crossing. We need to go from the crisis to the crossing. The crisis to the crossing. So what does it mean to go from the crisis to the crossing? So the person who models, my friends, going from the crisis to the crossing, and it's so good to be with you, right, in this moment of both darkness and light. The person who models the movement from the crisis to the crossing, right, is a person, an archetype, a force, a personhood, right, in history who is madly beloved, both by the Christ traditions, by the Islamic traditions, by the Hebrew wisdom traditions, and finds his place deeply in Eastern traditions. And he's called Abraham, Av Hamon Goyim, right? He is the father source of nations across the globe. And of course, he has a different relationship to Western traditions. He appears more esoterically in Eastern traditions, but there's strong esoteric traditions that locate, right, and find a direct link between the lineage of Abraham and the lineage of the East, Buddhist lineages, and Kashmir Shaivite Hindu lineages. We're not going to engage in that topic right now. So Abraham is this Av Hamon Goyim in the book of Genesis. He's the father, right, of many nations. And the fatherhood in the best sense, in the sense of the blessing of the father. And Sarah is the matriarch, the mother. And Abraham engages in a movement. And that movement is he lives in a moment of crisis, a moment in which the shadows, right, of his moment in time need to be transcended, right? Their trances need to be ended. The ways of thinking, right, the old ways of being are cause of unimaginable suffering. Abraham understands himself as being in this time between worlds and time between stories, and he hears a call. He hears a call. I tell you, stay with me. Okay, stay with me. Okay, he hears a call. Right, he hears a call. And what's the call that he hears? He hears a call, and the interior scientists talk about this call, right, as a call that went out to every human being in reality. But Abraham hears it and he responds. So it's not about who's called, it's about who responds. We're all called to be able to hear the call and to answer the call. What does it mean at this moment to answer the call? What does it mean to answer the call? So he hears the call. And the call is to move from the crisis to the crossing. Right? And the very word crossing, right, the very word crossing, right, is Hebrew. Hebrew means crossing. And Hebrew means it has a second meaning. And the second meaning of the word Hebrew, Aver, Ivri, the second meaning of the word crossing is past. Right? Crossing also means past, avar, the past. So he moves from a memory of the past. He moves from the repetition compulsion. We repeat the stories we were told in the past, and he steps beyond all previous lineages, and he feels this emergence, this new possibility. Right? He feels this evolution of love, and he actually realizes, he feels this, he intuits, he senses, he remembers the future. And to move from the horror to the hope is to be able to access, right, a memory of the future. Does that make sense? Right? Talia, you still with me? Don't go away. Okay. So you're right. So, right, we'll be able to access the memory of the future. Okay. So stay close, right? It's beautiful, right? Here we go. So stay in. So stay in, step at a time. Step at a time. Stay in, relax your body, open, spacious, just feel it. So Abraham is mired in the past. He goes forth to his deepest self. There's a text, go forth to your deepest self. Lech lecha, go forth, lecha, to your own deepest self, which is to the deeper vision of self that's coded in you, which is, right, Abraham's an early adopter. He's the very first incipient, right, glimmering, or one of the first incipient glimmerings, David Graeber would say in his book, The Dawn of Everything. He's a first incipient glimmering, right, of Homo Amor. So he feels the crisis and he responds to the crisis with becoming a Hebrew, a boundary crosser. He breaks the boundary of the memories of the past and he accesses hope, which is a memory of the future. So Aver, Hebrew, means crossing, but it means crossing from the past. The word Ever, Aver, which is a 3-letter Hebrew root, means Hebrew, it means past, and it means the crossing. So I move from the memories of the past to the memories of the future. Okay, so it's a moment of crossing. Okay. Now, what's the nature of that crossing? What's the big name? Abraham, who is the father of all Islam, the father of all Hebrew wisdom, the father of the Christ traditions, right? A critical formative figure in his lineage and transmitting, right, to the East. Right? Abraham is called by one master, Isaiah, one master of prophecy. Right? Master of vision, master of memories of the future. A prophet is one who is coded with memories of the future. When I feel Homo Amor in me, and every single person who's here today, we're here together because we feel Homo Amor in us. That's why we're here. We're called not because we're from the same family or from the same socioeconomic background or from the same racial background or from the same religious background or from the same geographic background or from the same political background or from the same sexual orientation background. That's not why we're together. What brings us together and that which, right, unites us is much more fundamental than anything that divides us, is that all of us, each of us here today, right now here, right, we're coded with this fluttering of Homo Amor, with this new possibility, right, with this memory of the future. Okay. So now what's the nature of this memory? So Isaiah calls Abraham Avraham Ohavi. Abraham is the lover. He loves God, but God has reality. Abraham loves reality. He loves the real. And he expands the boundaries of the real. Okay. So let's see if we can try and find this. And then we're going to bring this directly into where we are today in the most, precise, so tender, such a tender way. And it's going to be a little bit hard and quivering tender. But let's go step at a time. So Abraham is the lover of the real. So what Abraham introduces is this notion, right, of being the lover. He's the lover, right? And the lover not as a social construction, if you will, although the word social construction obviously didn't apply in ancient Mesopotamia, but Abraham was a lover in the sense that he understands that Eros, that love, is the core nature of reality. And Abraham transmits this knowing, right, to Isaac, right, to Jacob, to Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, to Leah. There's this knowing. And that knowing ultimately goes to Egypt, and then there's an exodus from Egypt, and there's an entering, right, into the land, right, the land that's now the land, right, that is in the Middle East, at the center of the Middle East conflict today. And there's a first commonwealth in that land, and it's, right, the Commonwealth of David, and David is David the lover, and he gives this transmission to Solomon, his son, and Solomon writes a book called the Song of Solomon, the Song of Songs. And the Song of Songs is the source of the Christ Mary Magdalene tradition. It's the source of the Islamic Sufi tradition, right, in many, many different ways. It's the source of, right, some of the most important and stunning traditions of compassion, right, in the East, right? It's the phenomenological source. It's the I'm not talking about the kind of precise historical source. That's an interesting question, but it's the phenomenological source. It's the source in human knowing, right? Human knowing. It's the anthro-ontological source, right? In the collective consciousness of humanity, this knowing that reality is Eros, or as Solomon said, Toho Ratzuf Ahava, its insides are lined with love. The reality at its core, at its very, very, very essence, reality at its core is a love story. And that's not a fairy tale, right? That's actually the true and essential notion of reality itself in its deepest being.